Madam Chair, we're live.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Marla Billinghurst. I will be chairing the meeting this morning. With me today on the panel are Mr. Jerry Arnell and Mr. Brian Carlin. The secretary will be Ms. Crystal Harland, and the City of Winnipeg assessor is Mr. Matthew Harlink. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you may leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish, and once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 6 on our docket today. Mrs. Harlan, please affirm the assessor's and the applicant's testimony.
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Assessor, would you please state your full name?
Matthew Harling.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, would you please stand? Thank you. Would you please state your full name?
Sure, Story.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The first matter we will be hearing is number 1 on this morning's docket, 1755 Dugald Road. Mr. Harling, please proceed when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The file number is 24-2677. The roll number is 060933300000. The address again is 1755 Dugald Road, and the owner is AB Comp Holdings Limited. The 2025 roll year based on a reference date of April 1st, 2023, assessed at $5,507,000. Just before I go any further into my presentation, I have a recommendation I'd like to put forth. It's just based on some discussions myself and Mr. Story had prior to the hearing here. Before I go on the rec, I was going to think with the board, like maybe I give some context, obviously, on how I came up with the rec, just because it's a bit of a unique property, I guess, in the sense of how it's being assessed. So maybe I can just kind of give a brief background of what's going on with that. So yeah, if we just first things first, I think just to kind of give you some context, if we turn to page 5 of my brief, just kind of give you a picture of what's going on here. So Looking at the bottom of page 5 would be probably the best. So as you can see here, there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate parcels here. So now essentially all these parcels are owned by the same property owner. And I guess if you want to look at it, the main principal role would be the very bottom one where it says 1755, where you see it's kind of like a triangle shape at the bottom of the very left-hand corner. So essentially you can see there's multiple buildings here, right? So even though some of these buildings are in different roles, we're essentially assessing all the income or the value of the property on that one role. Now the remaining roles, the ones at the top and the ones to the right and the very bottom ones, those are all being assessed on land value. And obviously, and the reason that the reasoning for they're not all combined into one is because the top 2 roll numbers happen to be actually in a different school zone than the bottom ones. So there's based on that, we have issues that we can't combine some of these roll numbers together due to the differences of school zones and their requirements, what they need and stuff like that, and mill rates and things. So that's the challenge we have with this one. So that's why we can't combine all these together. So what we've been doing essentially is assessing these additionally on their own land value. That being said, I'm mindful of the situation of obviously this land's being used. You can see there's some buildings on some of these other parcels. So that's just some background of what's going on here. Now, if we just go to actually quickly to page 17 of my brief, which is the workup. I just want to quickly show you how we were assessing it previously. So if you just look at the top, we'll just see we have like the rental, potential rent, or vacancy, all that kind of stuff. And then you have the net income, and then we're capitalizing the value at $5,936,676. And then what we were doing initially was we were adding some land value in as surplus and then deducting some, which I know is kind of obviously confusing. So essentially what I'm doing here is my recommendation is essentially taking the capitalized value at 5,936,676 and just deducting all the land value that we're assessing at. And just to get a context of the land value of all the parcels, if you turn to page 20 of my brief, there's actually a picture here that just goes to show you, just showing the assessed values of each of these parcels. So if you go on page 20, you'll see an A, B, C, and D that I've labeled, and then you'll see the assessed values of each of these parcels of land. And if you add them all together, it equates to $1,432,000. So essentially, what I'm doing is my recommendation is taking the capitalized value, which we have assessed at 5,936,676, subtracting $1,432,000 for all that additional land value, and the recommended value now I'm proposing is $4,505,000.
So 4,505,000?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I will note just the next 3 parcels we're dealing with happen to be those land values or those land properties, just to give you some context. Yeah. So.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Story?
No, I'd like to proceed, Madam Chair, but I'll certainly limit my my presentation, my questions to matters not related to the related parcels, but we still have some issues with the capitalized value. So
Okay, so you are not accepting the recommendation.
no, we're accepting the methodology of removing the parcels, which we've done in our brief, but we're still a little ways away on value, but that does certainly narrow some of our issues. So thank you for that.
Okay, then Mr. Harling, do you have any?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was mindful of the fact that we were so far apart in those, but I just figured I just want to give the rec just based on that, because I'm still sticking with the rec deducting that land value. So that'll just, yeah, that's my position is still on that though. Yeah. So I guess that will be my value going forward, if you will, 4,505. So.
Okay, so do you
Yeah, but I'll still continue with the brief, obviously, yeah, because I know he hasn't accepted it, obviously, yeah. So
perfect, thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just continue from going back to page 1 and the property description information. Okay, so we go to page 1. We'll just see under the property description information here. See, there's 5 buildings on the roll. The buildings range from 1 to 2 stories. The actual year built range from 1950 to 1997. The effective year built also range from 1950 to 1997. We're using an overall effective year built of 1977. The wall heights for the buildings range from 18 to 20 feet. The land area is 181,950 square feet with a planned area of 65,065 square feet. And we have a leasable area of 75,240 and a land to plan area of 2.80. So if we turn to page 2 of my brief, we'll just see the request for income information has been received. There are no recent sales and there are no leases in place. Now if we turn to page 3 of my brief, we'll just see the subject property location. So this is just located on Dougal Road. As you can see the Google map image here, you can just see here, east of here would be Plessis Road, and just going further west, you'd eventually hit Lagimoni Boulevard. If we turn to page 4 of my brief, you'll just see an aerial view photo here, again, just kind of showing more of the parcel or the property itself, where it's situated on Dougal Road. Page 5 of my brief, we've already went into, so you can see here, obviously these are the 4 of the buildings that we're talking about, the total leasable area. These are the 4 buildings, and we've already discussed the characteristics of the land value that we were assessing previously. If we turn to page 6 of my brief, you'll just see some further photos of the subject, and then at the bottom you'll just see a photos of the subject without the parcel outlines, just to get a better idea of the 4 buildings here. So, okay, now if we turn to page 7 of my brief, I've just essentially just kind of done a breakdown just of the buildings themselves, just to give some idea context on them. So I've listed it from buildings 1 to 4. So you can see here the areas range from for building 1 is 41,521 square feet. Building 2 is 7,480 square feet. Building 3 is 16,635 square feet, and then building 4 is 9,600 square feet, which gives us that leasable area of 75,240. And then you can just see the actual building ages from 78, 50, 86, and 97. And then, as I indicated, the effective year built is 1977. That's just essentially a breakdown of just these buildings when they were built. We turn to page 8. It's just some further photos of each of the individual buildings, just from some aerial views. Page 9 is just another view of the subject, just building 1, just from a close-up view. And this continues on page 10. This would be building 2, just some photos. Page 11, this would be building 3. You can just see the photos from the aerial and then the isometric view. And then lastly on page 12, this is building 4 here, just to show that building. Again, just to show some photos of the buildings, more zoomed in. Page 13 of my brief, this is just some street view photos. So this is the building 1. Just a street view photo of it. On page 14, this would be building number 2, just a street view. Page 15 at the bottom, this would be building number 3, and at the top is building number 4. And then page 16 is just another view of building 3 from the front, and then at the bottom of page 16, these are just some of the building, or the property. What they do is they sell pre-made fabricated cottages and homes. So this is what they have on the edge of the property, which you may have seen in the aerial view. So just to show the overall buildings and the property itself. Okay, so we turn to page 17 of my brief now. This is the income workup. So you'll see here we're assessing a leasable area of 75,240 square feet. We are applying a model rate of $6.05 a square foot, which gives us a potential rent of $455,202. We're allowing 1.5% for vacancy, which then gives us an effective gross income of $448,374. We're allowing 3% for non-recoverable expenses, as well as $4 per square foot for shortfall to cost to cover vacancy, which then gives us a net operating income of $430,409. Lastly, we're applying an overall capitalization rate of 7.25%. And as I indicated previously, we had a capitalized value of $5,936,676. But again, as I indicated, deducting that land value gives us a revised estimated value of $4,505,000. Okay, so if we turn to page 18 of my brief, you'll just see some rent comparables. So I've shown comparables. We're assessing the property on one entity, at least area at 75,000 square feet, but I've just shown a number of comparables, some smaller and larger, just to show the buildings themselves. So they range in size from 6,655 square feet to 121,815. Some of the locations here, you got Cole Avenue, Cordite, Niagara Road, Day Street. These would be the most, Kimberly Avenue, these would be the closest to the subject in terms of location. But again, as you can see, they range in size from 12,000 square feet, 30,000, 42,000. These rents, range from $5.73 a square foot to $9.50 a square foot. If we go further down the brief here, we'll see some larger comparables. 1720 Dublin at 52,000, 550 Oak Point Highway, 961 McLeod, and 1001 Reached Avenue. So you can see the rents again range as indicated, 573 square foot to 950. Effective year built range from 1963 to 1982. Lease start dates range from August 2018 to January 2022. So these are the rent comparables. I've shown here to support our model rent. So there's the comparables. Page 19 in my brief, we can just skip over that. That was just some land comparable sales. As I indicated, we're not assessing any land value, so that's just essentially initially we were, but that can be disregarded. Page 20 of my brief, we've already spoken to about the land value, which we deducted, so that can be also moved upon. Turn to page 21 of my brief. As I indicated, we were applying a cap rate of 7.25%. So if we look at the city of Winnipeg's cap rates we apply for properties, it falls within the range of what we've indicated from 5.35 to 7.25. If you look at some of the outside sources, we can see the cap rates range, on the higher end on the low end of 5.75 up to 7.50. So I believe, our cap rate falls right within the range of what the outside sources are indicating. So, the fact that there's multiple buildings and different ages and such, I don't believe that we're being unreasonable with the cap rate. Again, lower land to plan ratio, ages of some of the buildings and that factor. So I believe our cap rate does fall within the range of what the outside sources are indicating. If we turn to page 22 of my brief, we'll just see some Municipal Assessment Act excerpt information. Page 23 of my brief, this is the income expense matter that the owner had provided. They've indicated net income, but it's more of a book rent, so we're not really putting much emphasis on this. So, but they did submit it, so just they are compliant. And this ends on page 26 of my brief. And with that, I believe that concludes my presentation, and I am open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Story. Do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Harling, this assessment, and I appreciate that you've made an adjustment here, but ultimately, the rent, the cap rates and the vacancy, that would all be model generated, is that correct?
Yes, correct. As indicated, it is model derived, yes.
Okay, have you inspected this property?
Not internally. I've done an exterior, but not internally, no.
Okay, all right, so let's talk quickly about the rents that were applied. So I'm going to your page.
18, I believe.
18, okay, so now you mentioned, you said Cordite, Kimberly, and Cole were closest, but isn't it true that the first two numbers of the roll, does that not indicate the neighborhood? Is that not how we tell if it's in the same neighborhood of our subject, if the first two numbers match?
I don't think it's, we have like a code depending on, how the range of it, So I'm mindful of the fact that they're not like I'm saying they're next door or anything. I'm just saying the same kind of market region, if you will, sort of.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And the zoning for these properties, are they all M1 like our subject?
I don't have that information. I believe there might be some variations. I don't have the information on hand, so.
Okay. And it just as a general comment, would you agree with me that M1 zoning would be more, there would be more M1 zoned land than say M2 or M3? And typically it's called the scarcity or the rarity of the M2s and M3s versus M1 might command a higher rental rate. Is that a fair comment?
I will agree with in the sense of you're right, when it comes to M1 versus M2 and M3 land, you have more ability to build more structures, and there's certain things you can do which would maybe potentially have some more market, in that case I believe they may make it more valuable in some senses, yes, depending when you build on them. So
And when we see these reasonably short leases, so I can see some that are, let's call it under 5 years, those would not be typical in our market. Is that in industrial, at least? Is that fair?
Anywhere from 5 to 10, I don't think is unreasonable. As you start getting into maybe larger parcels, you would see longer term leases. I'm mindful of that. Okay.
And so those, I agree with you. So if we look at the last one, that's a 1-year lease. Indices 1 is a 2-year lease. Debates is 3. Kimberly's just under 5, so less of a concern there, but can we agree that generally as we've established now, the short-term leases are less typical, and would you agree with me that they may be higher than what we would expect if somebody were to sign for a longer, more typical 5 or 10-year lease? Is that fair?
Obviously shorter term leases, there may be, the rents may be higher because of that reason. And I will just note, just to be honest, like, the 1,000 Reach Avenue, I will note that is a superior property too. So I'm just being mindful of that, so,
Okay.
but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, it looks like they go in order, they're ordered by lease area. is it fair comment that while all of these, save for the last 2 or 3, let's say, would be a fair bit smaller and would likely require some adjustment for economies of scale? Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, like I said, I'm mindful of that's why I showed some smaller, some bigger, and I'm mindful of the fact that we're assessing them as one, area right at the 75,000 leasable area. I was just trying to show, I understand there are multiple buildings, but yes, I'm mindful of that. Yes, yeah. So
Right. And just last question on these, Mr. Harling, are any of these rent comps, are these rents that are blended over a number of buildings, or are these representative of a single premise?
I apologize. I don't have that exact answer. I think there would be a mix, but I don't have the exact breakdown. I apologize. So,
so moving on, the vacancy rate that I'm seeing here appears low at 1.5%. Is there anything in your evidence that supports that low stabilized vacancy?
I don't have any vacancy reports in my brief. Again, we look at market vacancy rates, so I'm mindful of that. But no, I don't have anything in my report for that. So,
okay, can we agree that that's extremely low? at a minimum?
It's lower. It's a bit lower. I won't deny that. Yeah.
Okay, and the cap rate that you've applied, that's model generated, correct?
Again, yes, model generated, but again, based on actual sales we see in the market, we analyze. But yes.
Okay, and then in terms of the sales that were inputted into the model in order to generate these model derived outputs, do we have a sense of how many sales were used in the city's model, or how many were multiple buildings, or any can you give us any indication as to the quality of the data set that was inputted to derive this this cap rate today?
We don't have any. I don't have any information talking about the model, so no.
Okay. All right. I think I'll leave it there, Madam Chair. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions for the assessor?
All my questions have been asked already. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, do you have any questions for the assessor?
I do not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Nor do I. So, Mr. Story, please proceed with your presentation when you're ready.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Chair. So once again, we are at 1755 Dugald. Mr. Harling has quite rightly pointed out that this is an industrial building where they build prefab homes and cottages. As you can see by the photos, this building was built up, or this operation was built up over a number of years, starting in 1950 up to 1997. And it is on a number of parcels, and once again, they can't be merged, unfortunately, due to the that unfortunate situation with the discrepancy in the school mill rates. So we've taken related parcels and we have deducted them from the assessment of the main holding. Now it's very important to note that those are separately assessed and indeed separately taxed. So we want to ensure that we are not double counting those for assessment and taxation purposes, but now that has been dealt with, so that's good. We'll leave our commentary there. On page 6 of my brief, you can see the breakdown of the building, and you can see that predominantly 55.2% of this building was constructed in 1978. We've got about 22% built in the mid to late 1980s and the late 1990s, 1997, 9,600 feet were built, which equates to 12.8%. So we have a building that's been built up in something of a piecemeal fashion, and the owner is the operator, and they use all the different buildings on this site. So it's a bit tricky to determine a market rent, but I think we'll get to that in one moment. But we have to be cognizant of the fact that we have a number of buildings, and it is indeed built up over a number of years in sort of a piecemeal fashion. Now, the one good, very good piece of news for our.
May I stop you?
Yes. Oh,
Sorry, is anybody else having trouble hearing Mr. Story? Is it? No.
No,
I can hear him fine. No.
I'm fine.
Okay. Go on.
speak louder. Okay, so if you turn with me, Madam Chair, please, if you and the panel would follow me, please, to my page 13. Now, I apologize, there's an error. I'd mentioned $7.63 applied by the assessor, but it's indeed $6.05. So we're a little closer than I initially thought, but ultimately we looked to the market in the surrounding areas. We looked on Dougal, Paquin debates. We looked for comparable leases. And the piece of good information here, the very good piece of information from my perspective, is that we have in indices one, the neighboring property. So this is indeed the property right next door. It has the exact same locational factors that we ought to consider. It doesn't have the large number of buildings and that sort of thing. And it is a slightly older lease from January of 18 running to December of 2029. So it is in effect in our reference date, it's a bit older, but it's at $4.58. Same zoning. It was built in 1980 and 2001. So it is superior in that regard. It has 20 to 24 foot wall heights. So that is that's a very that's a positive. And it has a superior land to plan for the subject without consideration of the adjacent parcels. So that is my best piece of evidence for market rent comps. It's not all that often that we find the property right next door, but in this case we have. So I put a lot of weight on that indices. It's at 4.58. We are going to suggest to you $5.50. So from my perspective, best practice is to look to market rents and then make adjustments where appropriate and with caution not to over adjust. But based on that older rent right next door at $4.58, I think we're well supported at $5.50. So we've applied that in our calculation. I've included a number of other rents. I would suggest to you that they are generally superior. I can speak to them if you'd like, but I have once again put all of my weight on the first indices. I've adjusted for the fact that it is a bit older, it is a bit superior, but I think that $5.50 makes is supported by the data in this scenario. So we have applied $5.50 as a potential market rent. Again, we're cognizant of the number of buildings here, and we have something of an atypical situation. In terms of vacancy, when we work up our cap rates, we've typically used vacancy that ranges between 3% and 4% for this cycle. I think 3.5 or 3% would be typical. We want to be careful not to adjust the vacancy so low that it's not sustainable over the economic life of the asset. So we've used three. Let me just make sure I've got the right figure. We've either used 3 or 3.5. Sorry about that. We've used 3.5%. So that's at the lower end of our range. And we do also consider that the vacancy deduction should allow for some amount of collection loss in a fee simple assessment of the property. So 3.5% is supported. I've also included the 2022 year-end figures from the Johnson report. The Johnson report is the industry standard in our market for industrial when we look for information like vacancy. So if you just follow through with that Johnson report excerpt, you can see that at year-end 2022, St. Boniface, the vacancy rate without consideration for collection loss was 2.6%. That's for the total inventory. If he further breaks it down for single tenant investment vacancy, he has St. Boniface at 8.2%. For multi-tenant investment vacancy, he's at 5.4%. So again, I'll leave that there, leave it with you, but ultimately we feel that 3.5% makes sense. 1.5% is too low for a stabilized vacancy for this property, despite the fact that it is owner occupied. We have to be consistent when we calculate our cap rates and when the properties are in subject as well. We've also provided you with a standalone capitalization rate study. I'm happy to speak to it, but I think it's well summarized in our chart on page 23. So we've shown you a number of sales in the market. I don't know that any of them will be directly comparable But they are in line with what the brokers are telling us. We're considerate of the fact that the brokers are a good way to understand compression with the cap rates from cycle over cycle or decompression. So we do keep an eye on the external reports, but we also we look to sales in our market. And in this case, we've determined, based on the sales that we've reviewed, a median cap rate of 6.43, an average of 6.85, a minimum of 5.75, and a maximum of 8.64. That would be on the high end for what we'll call non-investment grade properties. But ultimately, those sales support our cap rate conclusions, indicating that Class A, the best in class industrial, ought to range somewhere between 5.5 to 6.25, though 5.5 would be quite rare. Class B, which is the majority of our market today, would fall somewhere between 6.5 and 7.5. And then again, that non-investment grade, what we've sometimes called under demolished product that is still active in our market, would be 7.5 at a baseline, and then adjusting upward for any of the factors that may affect the ultimate risk profile of the property. So when we consider adjustments, when we consider any element or factor that would give an investor pause, that would create what we'll call an elevated risk profile, we look to wall heights. So wall heights that are under 18 feet would typically be considered obsolete for a large swath of our users. Wall heights less than 14 feet are completely obsolete at this stage. When we see single tenant buildings that include more than 100,000 square feet, that is a greater risk. That's somewhat rare in our market to have industrial buildings over 100,000 square feet. Land to building ratios of less than 3:1 would be considered detrimental. And then any issues with loading, access and egress, as well as the lack of city services or older areas at the end of their economic life. So based on the fact that we have a property with a number of buildings that were built over a number of years, so inefficient piecemeal construction, let's say, that would give us some concern. So we're not miles apart, but I think that we're being very fair and reasonable by applying a cap rate in this instance of 7.5%. And once again, that's not based on a model of any sort. That is simply based on the discretion of the analysts that have looked to the market and actually done a site-specific review of this property. So we will respectfully submit that the cap rate in this instance ought to be no less than 7.5. I think there's a good argument to be made that perhaps 7.5 to 8% makes more sense, but I'm comfortable at 7.5% for the purpose of our discussion today. The balance of my brief includes a number of photos. The property has been inspected. You can see that it is not what we would consider a typical investment grade property. It is, let's call it utility grade. It's functional for the owner, and it satisfies their requirements. But in terms of the overall industrial market, this would be considered, well, not commensurate with what we would consider an investment grade property. I'll leave those photos with you. It's fairly lengthy, but you can see all the interiors of all the different buildings on site. So, Madam Chair, ultimately, now that we've disposed of the issue regarding the ancillary parcels, we feel that the value ought not to exceed $3,604,000 for the purpose of our assignment today, and that number once again is $3,604,000. The calculation is in my brief, and again, that's based on requested adjustment to the rent, the vacancy, and the cap rate. Based on a site-specific review of the property. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harling, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
I think most have been answered, but I'll just thought I'd ask. So just speaking to like the cap rate, I appreciate you kind of went into depth and everything like that. So, and I know you provided some sample cap rates here. So, just looking at some of the samples here, which you kind of indicated, like, you know, I understand you're not just saying, oh, these are the cap rates and we're applying one here, and I understand how you come up with it or what your argument is, but just looking at these cap rates, you know, I guess when I look at the more larger ones you've indicated here, you know, they range anywhere from 6.25% to 7.09%. You know, are you say, would you, like you, I know you've used the investment grade a lot. Are these all investment grade properties based on what you've indicated, I guess?
So in terms of the inputs that we've used this cycle, the one that I would suggest to you is not, would we not consider income grade is on, or is not considered income, investment grade, apologize, would be the one on Wall Street. So we're not suggesting that that would be an investment grade property. However, there are some similarities between our property and that property in terms of age. I mean, the initial age is 1950, and we're certainly not suggesting a cap rate of 8.64, and we're certainly not suggesting that our property is not superior to that property. But to answer your question, that one would be considered non-investment grade from my perspective. We also have inputs on Mission and on Warman. Now, the one on Warman is superior, and that's a 6.27. So that falls squarely in line with the call it the low end or the high end, I suppose, of the cap rates for the A's. There's probably a good argument to be made that that's more of a B, but that's okay. And then the one on Mission is a 7.09. Now it's larger. It has the ceiling heights are better, and it is not piecemeal construction. So ultimately, those inputs, while they're not meant to be directly comparable without adjustment, they do indeed support a 7.5 cap on this property for all of these unique situations that we've identified today, with the large number of rolls, the consideration for the multiple tax rolls for assessment purposes, and the fact that the property has indeed been built up over a number of years. We feel very comfortable at 7.5 at a minimum.
Okay. You know, again, I'm not trying to, you know, rag or anything. Like, I just noticed the 680 Mission when I was looking in our system that there is, like, it does look like there is some different ages, some piecemeal in that one. But regardless, I understand. I appreciate you kind of going through that again. But and I guess just one other quick question was, like, I know you, when it comes to the rental income, you've heavily relied on that one on Dual Road adjacent, and I know you alluded to the fact it's a bit older lease. You know, so some of the other ones you've shown here, like for example, like on Panet and Paquin, these are all in the same, you know, area. I'm mindful of that. So is it fair to say you're just relying on the one comp? You're not putting any weight on any of your other comparables, I guess? So
no, I'm considering them, but it's I have to also consider that they're superior. So if they are superior, we ought to adjust them. So if I'm looking at, for example, number 2 on Paquin, again, that building was built in 83 and 93. We have to consider that our property was first built in 1950. Indices number 2 has wall heights or ceiling heights ranging between 20 and 25 feet. So that would be a superior situation. And then we have M2 zoning. Again, as we've agreed, M2 zoning would be superior. It provides the greater use. And then the land to building on that one, while it is sub 3, it is 2.38 to 1. So it's from my perspective, it's not simply enough to find some rents that are in the area and then just sort of look at them without adjustment. So we have to consider some adjustment. But to answer your question, I suppose, yes, I have put the most weight on the property right next door. I think it's the best indicator. I do think that it has some superior elements to it. But ultimately we're not using 458, we're using 550. And I think in this scenario, it makes sense.
You know, I believe that should be all my questions, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I was just making a note. Okay, Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a little bit on the 3.5% vacancy rate for a single tenant.
Yeah.
I know you touched on it, but I don't think I got it all.
Sure. So when we so ultimately when we apply a vacancy allowance, when we have a single tenant, the vacancy is either going to be 0 or 100. So we're not going to use one of those extreme numbers. We have to look at a vacancy that is appropriate and would be considered a stable vacancy over the life of the property. So we don't want to see big peaks and valleys in terms of vacancy. If this property were to become untenanted, we wouldn't apply 100% vacancy. We might apply some elevated vacancy if there's some reason to, but generally we look to the market to apply a vacancy that is sustainable over the life of the asset. So 1.5% is extremely low. I don't know why that's been applied by the city, but we're typically seeing something in the range of 3 to 4%, and we are comfortable at 3 to 3.5%. When we're looking at stabilizing the vacancy over the overall life of the asset. I'd mentioned as well, when we capitalize our cap, or when we develop our cap rates, we will use a market vacancy, and typically that is 3 to 4%. Further to that, we also consider collection loss in the fee simple ownership of the property. That's not usually captured in these broker reports, but there is some consideration for bad debt and collection loss. So 3 to 4% would be the window that we're comfortable with. 1.5% is, that's almost no vacancy. That's almost like using a 0% vacancy. So from our perspective, that doesn't make sense. Even in an owner occupied property, we would look to a market vacancy for a sustainable, reasonable vacancy expectation of the life of the property.
Okay, that's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harley, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, nor do I. Is there a need for a summary from either party?
No, I'll just let the board make their decision based on the evidence. Thank you.
Very quickly, Madam Chair, we feel very comfortable with the 7.5 cap. It's somewhat optimistic based on what we've learned today about the number of roles and the unique nature of this property. This one would definitely fall outside of the normal boundaries, let's say. So we feel very comfortable with a $5.50 rent, a vacancy that's more commensurate with market, and a cap rate of 7.5%. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we can move on to the next matter on the docket, which will be, file number 24-2680. It's on Dugald Road, but there's no actual address. Mr. Harlan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The file number is 24-2680. The roll number is 0910421200. The address again is on Dugald Road. The owner is AB Comp Holdings Limited, All Fab Buildings Quotes Incorporated. The 2025 roll year based on a reference date of April 1st, 2023 is $486,000. So, Madam Chair, before we just go further into this, as I kind of alluded to previously in the previous presentation, the remaining 3 parcels here, they're all the same on the same property as the previous one we just spoke to, and you know. In my recommendation, which I know wasn't accepted, we've already deducted that land value. Like I've already essentially taken all that land value and deducted it essentially based on my recommendation. So I guess my question is like Mr. Story kind of alluded to it, we don't, that's why we didn't want to be double counting, for example, right? So I'm just curious, like how far should I go into just very basics of this, I guess, maybe just kind of speed it up because it's already been kind of spoken to, if you will.
And we will be confirming these 3, Madam Chair, based on the fact that they've now been dealt with in the main holding. So we're okay with confirming the related parcels.
Okay.
So yeah, I just wasn't sure how far, maybe in depth, if I just maybe speak to the value and just kind of end it there, and then yeah.
Okay, fine, Mr. Story. I noted it from your statement and from your brief that you are asking they be confirmed.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Okay. So then, yeah, should I just go through everything, I guess, as a normal, Madam Chair?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, so just your property description information. This is Vindor Vacant Industrial. It is zoned for M1 Manufacturing Light. The land area is 136,562 square feet. If we turn to page 2 of my brief, we'll know where it's located, just on Dugald Road here. Page 3 is just the parcel outline, as you can see here. This continues on page 4. Page 5 is just the valuation summary at $486,000. There are no recent sales. And then page 6 of my brief is just the zoning for M1 Manufacturing Light, just a brief description. Going to page 7, you'll just see the subject property here. It's 130,562 square feet. We're assessing it at $3.72 a square foot, which gives us a value of $486,000. Just look at the comparables here. You can see here the comparables I've applied here. They range from 118,126 square feet to 229. Price per square foot range from 527 to 708. We turn to page 8. That's just comparable 1 photo. 9, page 9, 10, and 11 are just some further photos of the comparables. Page 12 is just classification and location information. And page 13 and 14 are just some municipal assessment excerpt information. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Story. Do you have any questions for Mr. Harling?
No questions. Nope. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arnell.
No questions.
Mr. Carlin.
No questions. Thank you.
Nor do I. Mr. Story.
No, we're just asking that this be confirmed as it's now been deducted from the main holding. So we're asking for confirmation on this file, Madam Chair. Are we frozen? Can you hear us?
I don't.
No.
I
Okay,
can hear you.
just asking for confirmation on this file, as it's been dealt with now. So we are fine.
Madam Chair, can you hear us?
I can hear you
Oh,
okay.
sorry. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like everything froze for a minute. Sorry. Okay. I seem to be lagging behind everybody now, and I don't know why. Okay.
You must be on cable speed.
If you turn off the video, you might hear that latency issue. It might be the video taking up too much bandwidth. Yeah, you might need more. That's a common thing.
I think she's frozen again.
Yeah.
I think so.
Oh,
Oh, no, she's gone.
just wait for her to reconnect, I guess. Crystal, should suggest just a 5-minute break till we get Marla back?
Yes, I'll get us offline and try to get her on the phone. Thank you. Oh. Wait a second, here she is. Joining.
Hello, everybody. I'm so sorry.
There
I'm
you
back.
are. Okay.
Did you miss? Okay.
We did.
I have no idea what happened. It just everything crashed.
Technology.
Madam Chair, one thing you could do if you wanted to help the process is turn off your video and just
Okay.
with your sound if you continue to have lagging problems.
I'm going to try that right now. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Can hear you fine, yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, I'm so sorry about that, but Mr. Story.
Oh, yeah, no problem. No, not a problem. So these next three roles, we're good with just requesting confirmation. The assessor and I have now agreed to remove the values of these ancillary parcels from the main holding. So we are fine with confirming the first one, and my comments will carry forward to the other two that we're looking at today.
Okay, thank you very much. However, we still have to address each one on the docket.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm just going to make a note here. Okay, thank you. So we can move on to number 3 then, which is the next property on Dugald Road. Mr. Harling?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The file number is 24-2684. The roll number is 090104-21100. The owner is AB Comp Holdings Limited and All Fab Building Components Incorporated. The 2025 roll year best number episode of April 1st, 2023, is assessed at $495,000. Just look below my brief here, prop description. We'll see it's indoor vacant industrial. It is zoned for M1 manufacturing light, and the land area is 133,862 square feet. If we go to page 2 of my brief, we'll just see the location, which we are familiar with where it's located on Dugald Road. Page 3 is just some parcel outline photos of the subject. This continues on pages 4 and 5. 6 is just the valuation summary. There are no recent sales. Page 7 is just the zoning of the property, just a brief description. Page 8 of my brief is just the subject and the land sale comparables. Again, the subject's 133,862 square feet. We're using a land rate of $3.70, which gives us the value of $495. You can see my land sale comparables here. If you'd like to see those right here to the subject. And pages 9 through 12 are just some photos of the comparables. Page 13 is just some information on classification and allocation. And then pages 14, 15 is just some municipal assessment accuracy information. That being said, that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, any questions?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. O'Neill?
No questions.
Okay, nor do I. Yeah. Mr. Story?
So we're simply seeking confirmation, Madam Chair. So no, nothing further required, simply requesting that the board confirm this assessment as it's been dealt with.
Thank you very much. Okay, we can move on to the next matter, which is number 4 on the docket. And again, that's one of the adjacent properties on Dugald Road. So Mr. Harling, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The file number is 24-2682. The roll number is 0609332980. There is no address in file, but it's on Dugald Road. The owner is AB Comp Holdings Limited, All Fab Buildings Incorporated. The 2025 roll year based on a reference date of April 1st, 2023 is assessed at $291,000. Under below the prop description, we'll see the indoor big industrial zone for an M1 manufacturing light, and the land area is 26,059 square feet. If we turn to page 2 of my brief, we'll see the location again. Same location as the price. Page 3 is just some parcel outline. Page 4 of my brief is just the valuation, just valuing on its land. Page 5 is just the zoning information. It's zoned for M1 use. Comparable 6 of my brief, or page 6 of my brief is just the land area in 26,059 square feet. Applying a land rate of $11.17, which gives us the $291,000. You can look at page 6 as well, you'll see the comparable sales. And there's photos of the comparables on pages 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Page 12 of my brief is just some location information, assessing the value of land. And then pages 13, 14 are just the municipal assessment actors information. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, any questions?
No questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Arnell?
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Carlin?
No questions, thank you.
Nor do I. Okay, Mr. Story?
Simply requesting confirmation, Madam Chair. So no presentation. We've dealt with this now in the main holding, so we're good to confirm this role. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The next matter on the docket is number 5, 850 Marion Street. Would anyone like a quick break before we move into the next matter?
Yep, I'm good.
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, just thought I would check. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so then we can move on to number 5, which is 850 Marion Street. Mr. Harling, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The file number is 24-2909. The roll number is 0603019150. The address is 850 Marion Street, and the owner is Marion Business Park Incorporated. The 2025 roll year, based on a reference date of April 1st, 2023, is assessed at $8,538,000. If we look into the description of my brief here, we'll see the property is there are 3 buildings on the roll. There are number 27 premises on the roll. The actual year belts range from 1981 to 1987, which the effective year belts range from the same as well, with an overall effective year belt of 1983. The wall heights range from 11 feet to 22 feet. The land area is 245,250 square feet, with a plan area of 82,874 square feet. We have a leasable area of 82,851 square feet and a land to plan area of 2.96. Okay, so if we turn to page 2 of my brief, we'll just see the request for information has been received, and there are no recent sales on the subject. If you look at page 2 here, these are some of the leases. These are the leases that we have in file in place. I'm obviously not going to go through all of these, but the board can kind of just see the leases here. You can see there are a number of older leases. There are some more recent leases. There are some step-up leases. But yeah, these are some of the leases in place, and you can kind of see the lease terms of when they initially started. So, and then you can see the rents in place that they range from here as well. So let's just take a look at that. Okay, now if we turn to page 4 of my brief, we'll just see the subject property location. So again, this is located on Marion Street. As you can see, so here would be Archibald Street, and then just west would be Elijah Boulevard. So you can see where it's located on Google Maps here. We turn to page 5 of my brief, you'll just get a better view of the subject where the little red dot is. So you can see here, this is the parcel where it's located on Marion. Now if we turn to page 6 of my brief, you can actually see the parcel outline at the top here. And then at the bottom, you'll just see more zoomed in pictures. So you can see the 3 buildings here that we were assessing here. So these are flex warehouse style type buildings. And you can see the parcel outline. This continues on page 7 of my brief. Just see a different photo from Marion Street facing forward, and then you'll just see again another overhead view at the bottom of page 7. So just to get an idea of the overall parcel and the property. We turn to page 8 of my brief, just another photo from the top, and then here's some at the bottom of page 8. You'll see some street view photos. This is starting west. As you can see at the top here, we have them listed as 854, 850, and 846. So this would be facing 854, if you will, from the picture. This building would be from the building next over to the right. at the top, and at the bottom, just know where this would be for the third building. And then lastly, just on page 10, it's just another photo from a different angle from the building 3 from the subject property. So there's some photos of the breakdown of the subject. Okay, so we turn to page 11 of my brief. You'll just see the income market information we have, or the our income report, our income on this property. So you see here, there's a number of premises. There's a total of 27 premises we have on file, which gives us a total leasable area of 82,851 square feet. So these leasable areas range from anywhere from 1,700 square feet up to 7,493 square feet. And the model rates we've applied range from $7.10 a square foot to $8.26 a square foot. And we're using an overall blended rent of $7.74 a square foot, which gives us the potential rent at $641,254. So these are all the premises we have on file. Now, if we turn to page 12 of my brief, we'll just see the actual work up here. So again, as I indicated, the total leasable area is 82,851 square feet. As indicated, we're using a blended rent of $7.74 a square foot, which gives us the potential rent of $641,254. We're allowing 3% for vacancy loss, which gives us an effective gross income of $622,16,000 We're allowing 3% for expenses and $4 a square foot of shortfall cost to cover vacancy, which then gives us a net operating income of $593,414. And then lastly, we're applying an overall capitalization rate of 6.95%, which gives us an estimated value of $8,538,000. Okay, so we turn to page 13 of my brief. You just see the rent, some of my rent comparables here. So there's 2 pages worth here. So they range, from size from like 1,250 square feet up to 7,400 square feet. So covering the range of the size of the units. So you can see some of the locations here. So we have Desmirons, McLeod, Gillespie, Johnson, Dougal Road, Desmirons. So these are all, other flex warehouse buildings, and you can see the lease start dates are, recent leases signed. They range from roughly September 2018 to December 2022, 1 to 5 year leases, which is typical for these types of properties or units. They range from 1,250 square feet to 7,400 square feet. The wall heights range from $8.24 a square foot. The effective rear belts range from 1961 to 1995. And the rents in place range from $7.50 a square foot to $10 a square foot. So just looking at the model rates we applied, I believe, these would cover a lot of the, or they're very similar to our model rents. So I believe they would be supported. The outside sort of the model rents are supported by the market evidence I've shown here. So these are the comparables I've shown here. Page 50 in my brief is just the cap rate information. So again, we're applying a cap rate of 6.95%. So looking at the outside sources, it falls within the range of the city's, range of 28th percentile, 6.95%. I'm looking at some of the outside sources here. Even if you look at multi-tenanted, which of these buildings are, 6 to 7% from the outside sources from Colliers, CRB 6.5 to 7.5, so it falls within the range there. And then Cushman and Wakefield, 6.95 falls within their range. So I believe, some of the outside sources do support that cap rate as well. If we just look at some of what they're indicating here. So the 6.95, I believe, is supported. We turn to page 16 in my brief. You see some municipal assessment actors information. Now, if we turn to page 17 in my brief, you'll see the actual mailer in place they've indicated here. So they've shown the rental income, what they're generating here. Then this is a net lease because they are recovering their expenses, you can see here. And then on the mailer, they've even indicated a net operating income of $595,637, which is right within the range of what our net operating income has generated by the model. So I believe our model is supported by that. They've also indicated vacancy of 4.14%, so slightly higher than our model vacancy, but the vacancy we applied. But it's just to kind of show what the mailer is indicating here. Page 18 of my brief, these are just, again, leases in place. As I indicated on page 2 of my brief, shows a lot of leases already, a little bit easier to see than here. So these are the leases in place. Some of these are older leases, some have step ups, but there's a variety of leases when they started. There are some older and some newer. This continues on page 20 of my brief. And then lastly, on page 21, it's just just a breakdown of the site plan, just to show the buildings here. As you can see here, just the building 1, 2, and 3 here, just to show where they're located on Marion Street, just to kind of show the overall floor plan or site plan, if you will. I believe that's being said, that concludes my presentation, and I am open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions for Mr. Harling?
I have a few questions, Madam Chair. Mr. Harling, did you have a chance to inspect or visit this property?
Not recently. I have been in the building in previous years, but not recently, no. So
Okay, perfect. So having visited the property, can we agree that the access to this property off of the main road relies on a separately assessed parcel that is under common ownership?
yes, the parcel adjacent to it, I'm mindful of that. Yes.
Okay, and so similar to the previous file, may I ask why those two roles have not been merged by the city?
You know, I actually get this question asked a lot with a lot of parcels we have like this. You know, they are the same owner, so that's the one, you know, the one caveat. If they're not the same owner, obviously we can't. But before we can do it, we would have to get some kind of information from the owner saying that they would like us to do this. So even though if it makes sense, we'd have to get some kind of permission saying, okay, we would like this amalgamated, because if we just can't just do it, because there may be a situation where maybe the owner wouldn't want it amalgamated for whatever reason. So, but I am mindful of that, and I agree with you. You know, this is something they need for access, so it should be amalgamated. So perhaps that's something maybe we can hopefully going forward get fixed. So,
but Mr. Harling, the city does in fact merge roles with common ownership without the express consent of owners. Do they not?
There are some situations, maybe depending if it's like expropriation or something. So I mean, I can't, you know, I'm mindful of your situation. So, but that is something, yes, I believe, I don't disagree with you that, you know, going forward should be looked at and should be done. Yes. So.
Okay. All right. So page 2, you've rightly included the subject property rents. Did you review them or consider them in the workup for today's exercise?
I did look at some of them, yes. As I indicated, there are some that are older leases. There are some that have had some step ups. But you know, from what I was able to find, about 7 of them had step ups that we had on file that they've support or applied to us. But yes, I'm mindful of these rents in place, though. Yes. So
okay, and we're trying to determine the market value of this property today. So is it fair comment that if a purchaser were acquiring this property at the reference date, these are the contract rents that they would be purchasing? Is that fair?
yes, but my question to that is, like, some of these are older leases too, so you have to take that into account. So that's why we have to look at the market of more recent leases to make sure it's comparable. So of what the market's showing. So.
And in terms of these leases, do you use any of these leases in your briefs for other properties?
You know what? I don't have that information on hand. So.
Okay, but is it a fair comment that occasionally the city will use the rents from another property to support the assessment of some other property as opposed to rents in place?
Yeah. Of course, yes. No, I'm mindful. Yes. If you know, there's a lease in place, we would use some of them. Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay. And then I'm looking. So this is interesting to me on page 11. It would appear that the model, these are all model generated rents, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. The model appears to be capturing some semblance of economies of scale. Is that fair?
Yes. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Yeah.
Okay, so then when I look at, for example, I'm just interested now on it's called premise ID 3850. And then the one directly below it at 3851. So 2,558 feet is modeled at $8, and 2,517 feet is modeled at $8.01. So is the model suggesting that as we go up by 50 feet that there's a reduction of 1 cent per foot? Is that how the model is operating?
I'm not going to mention about the model today, Mr. Story. So
okay, I'm just trying to figure it out because it does appear that in some cases, can we agree that as the leasable area goes up, the rental rate also goes up when it should be going down? Is that not a fair comment based on what you submitted today?
Well, you have to look at here too. Like, these are across 3 different buildings, and some of these buildings were built at different times. So there's a lot of variations that go into it. It's not just, unfortunately, that simple. So, but
okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then if I'm looking at your rental comps, can we agree the first page, these are all 3 years or less, correct?
Correct, yeah, 2 or 3 years, yeah, correct.
Okay. And then I know about a couple of these, 1500 block of Dugald, those are truck bays, correct?
Which one on Dougal, apologize, 1301?
1525.
1525. 1525, yes, this one here. I believe that is a truck bay. Yes, yeah, again, yes, it's a bit higher though. I'm mindful of that, yeah, so.
Okay, and Johnson West, that's a neighborhood strip center, is that fair?
Yeah, that's another flex warehouse strip, yeah.
Okay, and then McLeod, that's another office retail neighborhood strip, is that not correct?
There is some office and retail in that, or well, retail, I'm not sure about office, but retail I'm familiar with, so.
Okay. Now, that unit that you've used, I couldn't determine, is that the pizza place or is that a nail shop? Do you know what the use is?
For which one is that again, apologize?
Number 2 on McLeod.
I believe that is a thrift shop, I believe.
Oh, that's the thrift shop, okay. Can we agree that would be a different use than what we would generally expect to see in our subject property, as a general comment?
Not necessarily, no, I don't see why you couldn't have a business like that in those units, so.
Okay. Okay, now on Terracon Place, this is page 14, can we agree that those additions on Terracon, those would be superior, is that fair?
Yes, the Terracon ones, and they're like, for example, 55 Terracon, it's a newer building too, so yes, I'm mindful of that, yes.
Okay, and then looking to the income and expense mailer, you're right, they are indeed indicating 4.41 vacancy. But did you notice that the rental income that they're reporting to you is 508,387?
Correct, yes, I'm mindful of that, yeah.
Okay, and so that would, I mean, I'm a little bit higher than that, but the workup is much higher than that, is it not?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Okay. I think I'll leave it there, Madam Chair. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Harlan?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Nor do I. Mr. Story, please proceed with your presentation when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are at 850 Marion. This is a property that indeed has 3 buildings on site. They're built in 1981, 1986, and 1987. I was last there yesterday evening. I wanted to have a closer in-person look to that strip that is required. And we've just to be clear, we've deducted that role that's required from our in our calculation today. So we'll get there in a moment. But I can certainly tell you that we have 3 buildings off of Marion. We have some unfortunate sighting. The property, many of the units do not benefit from any visibility from the main road. If you look at page 6 of my brief, you can see the somewhat unique sighting. Now, for context, this is a parcel that is just directly north of the former Canada Packers plant. So you can see that there's a rail line that impacts this parcel. It has very, very short frontage on Marion Street. It's about 215 feet, which is very, very narrow for this property, and that just speaks to the fact that we have very limited visibility from the main road. So once again, I've included some commentary here, but of course the first building at 850 Marion was built in 1981. It has a leasable area of 29,367 feet. Second building is 846. That was the one that was built in 86. The wall heights there are only 11 feet. And then the third building was built in 87. It has 18-foot wall heights, and there are indeed 23 units. I've mentioned the challenges here in terms of the siting and the parcel shape. Again, we would typically expect or hope to see parcels that are more of a square or a rectangle. This one is a bit trapezoidal, let's say, so that is not to its benefit in terms of visibility from the main road. And then again, we have that other issue regarding the ancillary parcel that is required for access to the site. So as in the previous file, we've simply deducted that value. On page 7, you can see that that is indeed roll number 06093461740. It's a parcel that is indeed contaminated. It is not used for anything other than accessing the main site. So in order to not subject the owner to double taxation effectively, we consider that the value of that parcel ought to be considered in the main holding, so we've deducted it for our purpose today. Now, in terms of the what we're going to suggest to you is a reasonable potential market rent income, and despite the fact that we are much higher than what the owner is reporting, we have looked to the actual rents in place, and you can see that they blend to $6.85 a foot. So based on 82,840 square feet of leasable area, we apply $6.85, and that is indeed supported by the contract rents. They've been laid out for you here. That gives us a market rent per annum of $567,674. Again, that is higher than what the owner is reporting, but we feel like that is a very reasonable application. We've looked to the market as well. I've provided a broad swath, admittedly, of rents from the area, and they indicate an average of $682 with a median of $695. So that further supports our $685. So we have the actual contract rents, and then we have other rents in the region that support our application of $6.85. We talked about vacancy. Mr. Arnold, you asked about how we determine our vacancy rates, and as I mentioned in the previous file, we do consider 3 to 4% or so for industrial in this cycle. You can see that the owner is reporting 4.41, but once again, just to echo my previous comment, to ensure that we're not adjusting or over adjusting the vacancy based on some temporal issue, but rather stabilizing it, we are okay with the 3% in this instance, though it is lower than what the owner is reporting. So that is why we've accepted, I believe that's not in dispute at this stage, but we're accepting the vacancy of 3%, despite the fact that a slightly higher vacancy of 3.5% might be appropriate. 3% for this market region seems okay. Again, the capitalization rates that we've applied, we're not far off what I'll call the baseline or the modeled cap that the city's using at I believe they're 6.95. Generally, a 7 cap for this property would be reasonable. However, we do have to capture the fact that we have these other issues where we have limited visibility. That will be that's an incurable issue. That's not something that we could fix or you know, there's no cost to cure that. That's simply the situation that we have here. So we've adjusted our cap rate, our baseline of 7 up to 7.25. Once again, that is largely based on the fact that we have an oddly shaped parcel with some siting issues. We've got a detrimental issue regarding visibility from the main road. And then we have reliance on a separate parcel to gain access to our site. These are not usual issues, and I would suggest to you they're likely not issues that can be captured by the model. So on a site-specific review, we've used 7.25%. Now we're again not far off. We would typically use 7. The assessor's using 6.95, but we are trying to capture that some of those site-specific issues. So with all of that being said, my page 24 includes the income summary, and based on an NOI of 524,183, which again is higher than the potential net market rent, and with a capitalization rate of 7.25%, and with consideration of the adjustment of that necessary parcel, we come to a value of $7,063,117. We then round that, of course, to $7,063,000. The balance of my brief includes the city workup. It includes the details, and it also includes the income and expense mailers that the assessor and I have both included. We've put some weight on that, where we believe that the actual contract rents in place are the best indicator of of the market value for those spaces, and it would be a more appropriate practice to use the rents in place rather than looking to market rents without adjustments. So with all of that being said, again, Madam Chair, we're suggesting a value of $7,063,000, and with that, I'm happy to take your questions, and I thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Harling, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
Just a quick few. So just if we just go to page 12, your brief, the rent comparables. Like I know you've indicated that looking at the the opposite contract rents and stuff like that. Just look at some of the comparables here. Like I know you've provided a number of them. Is it fair to say I guess there's a number of these that are all in the same building? I guess some of these comparables, I guess too. Or
yeah, they are. Yeah,
okay.
they're multi-tenants, which is, I mean, the subject is also multi-tenant, so it makes sense to use properties that are multi-tenant. But to be fair, Mr. Harling, I haven't put a great deal of weight. I've looked at these as a secondary check of reasonability to determine if the market rents that are being achieved by the owner in this building are indeed at market, and I'm satisfied that they are based on these indices.
Okay, and so just going back to the actual rents in place, are you aware if they're all are they all recent leases, or is there some older leases in there as well, or?
No, there are going to be some that are older. There are going to be some that are stepping. So, for example, I can see one from 08.
Excuse me.
That are newer. So it is a blend. That is fair, but and that will be typical in most properties. And if you were to, I suppose it would be a fair comment that if you were to look for a rental adjustment or a higher rent, then you should also probably consider other factors that would be required to achieve those higher rents. So it might be that the owner may be required to refit the space. There would certainly be leasing commissions that were included here in the I&Es. Now, we're not making a deduction for those things, but I don't think it's reasonable to simply say that the rents ought to be higher without some cost to the owner. I think those two things go hand in hand.
Thank you. Just I guess one quick word for your question is, just looking at the mailer they supplied us, I guess it would be on page 17 or 17 of my brief, and I guess you have to put it in your brief here as well. Is it, fair to say, just looking at their, I'm mindful of the rental income and such, but I guess it's fair to say that they're recovering pretty much all their expenses for the most part. Is it fair to say that? And
yeah, so we make sure that when we apply our rents, they are indeed they're based on triple net. So I'm noticing here, I don't know if you had missed it, but on page 33 of my brief, I have the actual income summary, the operating statement that was submitted as part of the I&E response, and it does show the rental income, it shows the management fee recovery, and then it shows the recovery. So yes, we are applying triple net leases to this property.
I guess just because I just see it's like I'm mindful of the rent in place. I'm very mindful of that, but I just look at the expenses, and then when I look at their net income, like their net income's notably higher too. After all the recoveries, so like it's 684,000 on page 33. So
yeah, well, I can see, for example, and you're aware of this. The tax recovery, for example, is calculated as income. It's higher than the actual expense, but those are typically adjusted later on. So I think the better figure that we should look at is what is actually being collected. And they've responded to the city in that mailer, and they've said that their rental income was 503,387. So I don't know why it's showing 564. I think that's including some recoveries. So those are likely in and out items, but the rent that they're reporting to you is being collected is 508,387. Sorry, that's the figure. So, and we're both well above that. I simply believe that the contract rents in place are a very, very good indicator of the market for this property, and I think that we have to be careful about using rents from other properties without adjustment, because they're not simply we're not necessarily comparing Macintosh apples to Macintosh apples.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate the questions. Thank you, or the answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions?
Just clarification. So you're asking to remove the 167 off of this property, which is actually the next property, right? Same as the last scenario?
Yes, precisely, sir. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carlin.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Nor do I. Okay, is there a need for summary on this one?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
I think we've said it all, Madam Chair. I think I'm good on this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we can move on to the next matter, which is number 6 on the docket, file number 2914, and it's again on Marion Street, but there is no actual address.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Harling, please proceed when you're ready.
So the file number is 24-2914. The roll number is 060934611740. The address is Marion Street, and the owner is Marion Business Park Incorporated. The 2025 roll year based on the revenue date of April 1st, 2023 is $167,000. I'll be quick with this one too. This, Mr. Story has already alluded to this. This is the parcel just adjacent. We actually turned to page 3 of my brief. You can kind of see exactly where it is. So I'm mindful of the situation of this one, obviously, of how it's assessed. And you're right. Something, it looks to me like, yeah, it probably should be amalgamated. I don't disagree with that, honestly. So yeah, I'm mindful of the situation with this one and his position on that. So I'm just going to be, very brief with this one. So again, the property type is, if we go to page 1, is Vindu or Vacant Industrial, is zoned for M3 manufacturing heavy. Land area is 59,995 square feet. Again, page 2 and 3 is just some photos of the subject. This continues on page 4 and 5. So you can just kind of see where it's situated, right next to the other property. Page 6 of my brief is just some valuation summary and an old sale, or the sale that occurred in 2013. Page 7 is what the zoning is, zoned for M3 use, manufacturing heavy. Turn to page 8 of my brief, you'll see the subject of the property again here, 59,995 square feet. We're applying a $2.78 rent, and the land value of $167,000. If you look here, you'll see comparables 1 through 4. They're comparing to the sale comparables. And pages 9 through 15 are just some of the photos of the rent comparables or sale comparables. I apologize. And page 16 is just some classification allocation information. And then page 17 and 18 is just some municipal assessment accuracy information. So that being said, that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Story, do you have any questions for Mr. Harling?
No, just confirming, Mr. Harling, that you don't disagree with our suggestion that this assessment ought to be deducted from the main holding at 850 Marion, correct?
I'm not going to say I'm not saying I'm recommending that, but I'm mindful of your position on this. So yes, I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Understood. I will leave it there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arnell, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Nor do I. So, Mr. Story, please go ahead.
Madam Chair, we're simply requesting that this value be confirmed on this file, and I would echo my previous statements that the assessed value of this parcel ought to be removed from the main holding as the two form a single economic unit. And on that basis, we'll ask that this file be confirmed today, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harling, do you have any questions for Mr. Story?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Arnell?
No, none, thanks.
Mr. Carlin?
No additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Nor do I. Does either party have the need for a summary?
I'm good on my end. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of the docket today. We have heard all of the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. Have a lovely day.
Thanks, everyone. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.